Viper was heavily set behind.
For sure. Viper really wasn't able to interact with that game whatsoever. Misfortune was jailed from minute number 1, Raafaa. And going into game number 3 now, I do wonder what the adaptation for BLG is going to be, because it felt like they played and kind of went to the style that we have always known them for. We got a solo kill from Knight. We had an aggressive Cassiopeia. We had good movement from Xun overall to try and be a bit more up in the playmaking in the early phases of the game. But JDG were just better about punishing that. And a lot of credit there has to go over to JunJia. So more playmakers for the mid-jungle duo of JDG. That is exactly what I am ordering up here for game number 3 if they want to win. And already Ryze going to be the pickup here for Knight. Anivia is still on the board, but JDG aren't necessarily forced to lock that in right away. Instead, gonna go for the Lucian Milio. And now that the Vi is fearless away, Mark, there's a lot more safety in going for that duo.
And it's interesting to go for the Lucian Milio so early when there's no real threat of Ashe Seraphine on the table. However, Kog'Maw Lulu.
All right.
Okay. Juggermaw has arrived to Summoner's Rift.
It certainly has, and anytime you see a Kog'Maw on the game, the focus immediately shifts onto this champion. You drop everything to set this behind or accelerate it ahead, and this would be a good redemption game for Viper. That Misfortune, like we talked about, was set so far behind, was barely able to participate in the game, but now this Kog'Maw is the main focus. There is the Anivia counter pick onto the Ryze that we were talking about, Mark. And now, going into the second phase of draft, I feel like for BLG, it is going to be about the space makers. It is going to be about the peel. It is going to be about ensuring Viper is untouched in these fights and that he can free fire in the late game.
When we think of Juggermaw, we think of Uzi from the RNG days. Protect the puppy comp.
Yup. Protect the Viper.
Very awesome to see. Yeah, protect the Viper now this time around. And I think Space Makers, great call for BLG. You want champions that can provide strong disengage, be able to stop any onslaughts, any engages from coming out from JDG. Obviously, the Lulu is going to be great at that. Ryze can at least try and lock down one target when they make their approach. But a lot of the stronger disengaged junglers, like the JunJia, were already fearless out. Jarvan not available to try and Cataclysm and create terrain. The Trundles being banned as a response and a threat to what JunJia could look for on JDG.
I really like these bans coming through from BLG, just removing any kind of snap engage that JDG could try to put on to this Kog'Maw. And that really has to be the goal here. JDG have a good amount of damage, but they don't really have any initiation tools, Mark. So I think the onus now is going to be on JunJia and Xiaoxu to get the fight starters in for this comp. But like you talked about, a lot of those, specifically in the jungle, are fearless away. So it really limits your options if you are JunJia. But Ambessa still open and available could give them at least a window into starting up and getting that snap engage. The question is, who do you have to follow up with? Because if it is just Ambessa engaging alone against a Ryze Lulu, that is not nearly enough in my opinion.
So I'm thinking for JDG, you probably look for Pantheon because you need a guaranteed way of connecting the public execution off of a stun or a point and click. Wukong could also be good. I was expecting that BLG were going to look for Wukong with the powerful disengage ability of Cyclone, but I forget that Lee Sin has a kick. You can just punt away one of those threats away, and because you already have a Ryze, Xun and Knight can link up again in the early mid-game, try and set that early mid-game snowball up for success. Oh my god, Bin is going to lock in Vayne into what could be the Ambessa. Now, Ambessa can be flexed, and that's exactly what's going to happen. Ambessa flexed into the jungle to cover for that counterpick matchup. Xiaoxu will go for the Jax instead.
All right, but this is a insanely good draft for BLG. We talk about the importance of stacking around this hyper carry that is the Kog'Maw, but what happens when you say, let's play around an AD carry and then add another AD carry? Suddenly the focus from JDG becomes split, because even if you work through all of the peel, all of the defenses that the Lulu, that the Lucian, that the Ryze bring to protect the backline Viper, you then have to deal with the Vayne going into your backline and wreaking havoc onto your team as well. So the focus from JDG could be split into too many different directions. This feels like a composition where BLG, if they get to the late game, are just absolutely going to demolish Jindong Gaming, and JDG are going to be too separated, too not on the same page in order to deal with a double marksman composition here. We already talked about the lack of engage, and now it is really becoming an issue when you have so many members you have to deal with.
Now, this is a composition that feels a lot similar to what BLG would try and go for during the regular season, where you have a strong early game jungler that tries and plays off of the priority of all of his lanes. I'm not gonna lie, I don't know how the Kog'Maw Lulu matchup should go into Milio Lucian, as Milio Lucian emerged as one of the more dominant 2v2s. But if Kog'Maw can stat check the Lucian, maybe have a winning bot side. We'll see how it all unfolds as we hit Summoner's Rift for Game 3.
Little classic BLG comp here, Mark, for game number 3. Overwhelming damage, overwhelming pressure, overwhelming display of mechanical execution is what this comp provides, and it has been BLG's bread and butter traditionally since the start of the year, even before that, if I'm being completely honest with myself. And this will be a comp I'm very excited to see, just because it feels like JDG's response is so concerning. You've got engage, you've got lockdown, but do you have enough of that to be able to deal with just how much DPS is going to be coming through from 2 marksmen on BLG's side?
Yeah. So 2 things. 1, shout out to Bin, 700 games played in the LPL ever since his debut year with Suning, where he was able to finish out as a world finalist.
Got a pentakill.
But also, yeah. But also, this is a Storm Raider Surge Jax top from Xiaoxu. So we're doing a little bit of cooking here in the top lane. I'm curious if that means he's going to go for the AP Jax build, just trying to max out the ability haste on that Counter-Strike.
JunJia didn't spot him.
JunJia might be in trouble here. Ambessa can be punished super early on. She needs levels. She needs items. And Shun immediately goes in, tags her with a resonating strike off of the Sonic Wave cast. JunJia does not... I'm not sure whether he was able to smite the Krugs or not. Looks like he did, though, because he has at least 4 camps with Vampire. Under fire under the tower. Flash from both of the supports, as well as the summoner heal from Vampire's Milio. Shun is going to take his leave and return to the top side of the map.
And the biggest reason why I think Shun is able... Well, there are 2 reasons why he's able to make that invade is, 1, he's got the bot lane priority. We saw Vampire, or Viper and On, rather, roam up toward that play to try and reinforce their Lee Sin on playing aggressively. But also, Ambessa early on, the cooldowns are very high for this champion. So once you use an ability, there is a very low chance that you're going to be able to get 2 recycled combos off in a team, or in a skirmish, in the early phases. So JunJia, once he uses an ability, he's not getting it back up. Shun is able to punish that and really make use of the fact that early on Ambessa isn't the duelist she's spoken up to be in the mid to late game.
Yep. I mean, we talk about her in the top lane that she needs to be level 6 before she can really start cooking in the lane, and then she really wants 2 items, ideally 1 at best. Knight might be pinned, though, by the wall. Pops the ghost. Might be too late to pop the flash, but he flashes the second cast of the Q from JunJia's Ambessa. Patience rewarded. Knight survives.
And HongQ, with the egg still available, comfortable enough to keep playing out in this lane, not go for a reset. It will require JunJia to have a bit more of a elongated presence in mid just to ensure that his birdie in the mid lane is safe from Ryze. But it looks like everything will be all quiet there in due time. Still, though, I love the way that Shun is moving around the map. We saw him go from that top side. He skipped the Raptors to get on toward this bot lane to continue pressure and to try and keep this this sort of jail onto the Ambessa from farming your camps on this side of the map.
Shun looking for GALA with the Sonic Wave. Tags him. Good on you, Shun, for listening to your mind and not your body there. I know I would have done it, but GALA had both summoner spells up. Sometimes you just got to send it for the boys. Oh, Shun
sent it for
goes
the
in
boys.
under Vampire. Yep. Well, at least the Milio didn't have any summoner spells. Smite. Once again, JunJia able to secure his own Krugs despite Shun's best attempts at denying him his own gold and resources.
Yeah, you know, Mark, our supports aren't unlike 5-ping or whatever the competitive... well, I wonder what the ping average legitimately is for the players, but we go for that kick. We 100% land it because Milio on like 40 ping is not going to be able to interrupt our Sonic kick. We just don't have supports that are built like Vampire here in North America, especially in our elos. We're washed.
Damn. Well,
at least
that's why we... well, that's why we cast, and that's why we don't play professionally. BLG, somewhat of a gold lead, but it is very dispersed throughout these members here. A majority of it in Bin's pockets as he has found a solid CS lead once again to Xiaoxu, despite his attempts at being able to try and collect some gold. TP was burned while Bin still maintains both of these summoner spells, gets his first base off, and with that Phage and Boots loadout, he's going to have a lot of movement speed to be able to kite Xiaoxu, and as long as he has his Condemn for the Counter-Strike, it's really hard for Xiaoxu to try and find any meaningful trades, but I have to give credit to JunJia. All the pressure that Shun has been trying to put onto the Ambessa, he's at least still farming up a storm and making sure that he's not falling behind when it comes to XP.
And at the very least, I feel like him being able to absorb that pressure is not only making it so that Shun's plans aren't working to get accelerated as this Lee Sin in the early game, but also Shun, if he's putting on pressure to you in the jungle, that's pressure he's not putting on to the lanes. So
yeah,
there you go.
Bin pops the final hour as well as the exhaust, but you saw that Storm Raider's Surge getting its value there, giving Xiaoxu enough movement speed to kite away before Bin could look for a more lethal all-in. JunJia now level 6, making his way towards the top side, but that ward in the Pixel Brush should give Bin enough information to get out of harm's way.
Xiaoxu just keeps getting condemned out. Bin, though, has to be very careful about stepping up when he doesn't have that E in his back pocket, because could be an easy engage for Xiaoxu, and with JunJia having level 6 as well, could be an opening for Ambessa to start making their mark on the map as well. Still, though, no kills going over here for the game, Raafaa, and I feel like with BLG, we talk about the scaling of a double marksman comp plus a Ryze, they're perfectly comfortable making this game go to late and willing to scale up and stack on these items. No objectives have even been jockeyed for so far. That's how low cortisol BLG are willing to be here in game 3.
I love seeing some low cortisol gameplay.
Yeah.
I take that back. No, I want high octane action between my number 1 and number 2 seed, but you can see how much the pressure means to both of these teams. While the Condemn doesn't necessarily go the right way for Bin, it at least allows him to get many more auto attacks onto Xiaoxu on his way out, disengaging from the trade. GALA empties a full clip, only finds a little bit of damage onto Viper's Kog'Maw. Shun already having secured 1 grub. Maybe I'm wrong in that. JunJia now smiting the second one. But now there's 1 more for the taking. Should go into the hands of JDG unless Shun wants to slink back around.
Well, HongQ is going to be forced to get back toward this mid lane, so Knight might be freed up to move on toward this topside river. Doesn't look like he's going to take that. JunJia is onto the Crook. So it will be 2 Grubs going over the way of JDG. Yeah, On is just being really annoying. He's just canceling the backs.
Did Viper just barrier just to tank that turret shot and stop a base? That's kind of awesome.
That's kind of, you know, we're talking about the aura needing to be reined in before the games on the walkouts, but what about the aura in the games, Viper?
I'm hoping that it was intentional and not a misclick, because I wasn't sure, to be honest, but we're going to go with that narrative, as Grubs are gone, and there's still a dragon to be secured by any of these 2 teams. And I think the big thing that you pointed out, because Shun hasn't been able to break open the game super early on, he hasn't been able to put any time into looking for objectives or looking for meaningful lane gank plays other than some of the pressure he put onto Vampire's summoner spells. But Knight has had to defend for himself in the 1v2 so far, and now with the pressure, maybe Shun can look for something, but he ward hops over the wall, and now looking for a collapse. GALA and Vampire immediately back off. That signals the BLG that they had vision control somewhere in this bot side river, more than likely that dragon pit. Knight gets stopped by the recall. That's going to be a little annoying for him.
Knight is half HP, kind of cut out from the rest of the team, so JDG can move in toward this river. Do have to pay attention to HongQ's mana, though. He is falling very low on that regard.
Thought that JunJia was going to pull the trigger there, but good sign of respect from this Ambessa to not just send it when they didn't know exactly where Viper and On were. They knew that they were in the area and could have followed up on the play, so not committing a potential mistake. Whereas Bin continues his dominance on the top side of the map, nearly 20 CS above the Jax, which was the counter pick response. And even with the Storm Raider Surge, I thought it was going to be something like a AP build. No, it's still just the Trinity Force standard rush.
I am interested to see how the Storm Raider Surge operates later on into the game for this Jax, because usually the go-to keystone for Jax is the Conquer, just to give you that extra bit of power in extended fights, but I feel like it really is going to be about one-shotting the backline. So if you can provide that stickiness to keep on to Viper, to keep on to Bin, but it just feels like it is going to be harder to proc in team fights as this Jax. You leap in and then you're immediately going to get kicked out, or you're going to get room prison. There's a lot of disengage that we've talked about with this BLG comp outside of the marksman that they have drafted. So really feels like you have to start making use of this in the laning phase. And so far, Bin is playing the spacing game to perfection up against this matchup.
Yep. Has only popped the exhaust once. I don't even think he's used his flash this entire game so far. So he's maintained his gold advantage. He hasn't necessarily spiraled out of control, but as long as the Vayne is getting her items in a timely fashion, like you said, BLG, even with a composition that has winning lanes across the board, they also have some scaling on their side. However, JunJia now in the area on the top side. Xiaoxu was not able to connect the counter-strike, but might have an angle to look for it again as JunJia is pushing in for the dive.
All right, Bin is probably going to sniff this one out. Gets vision of JunJia. There's flash, exhaust, everything is available for Bin to try and outplay this.
Xiaoxu just goes in for a plate. Forced to use the counter-strike to deny some damage as Bin went in for the all-in, popping the final hour. BLG, meanwhile, recognizing that JunJia is on the top side of the map, they can finally look for the first dragon of the game here in 13 minutes.
The scaling threat going to be made that much more palpable later on if you can back up the double marksman comp with a dragon soul threat. Will be pretty delayed in actually being able to get soul, as first Drake taken at 13 minutes was quite the wait to get there, but I think we'll, at the very least, have a similar curve to when we expect this Kog'Maw to come online. Kog'Maw, really strong once he gets 4 items specifically. So if you can time the breakpoints of this champion with the dragon and getting that soul, I feel like BLG saving that until 13 minutes does have a good amount of merit to it.
Bot lanes have now swapped to the mid lane. whereas mid lanes are now on the bottom side of the map. We'll see what Shun or JunJia can do around this new lane allocation. Rift Herald coming up in less than a minute. Shun now putting some vision down on the top side of the map. It is very dark for JunJia here. Goes in with the sweeper. Gonna give respect over to the Sonic Wave, but manages to secure at least one ward denied.
You can see that Shun is just waiting in the wings here. Viper looking for a trade. Good sidesteps from him.
Counter-Strike already expended. Bin now has the advantage
Exhaust.
with the exhaust. Flashing forward,
Oh.
he sees lethal, and Giga Bin tastes his meal in the top lane.
Yeah, he's got Hexblade now, so not only is he tankier, but also the extra attack speed you get once you proc ultimate turns Vayne into a machine gun mark. He's gonna take that opportunity, gets the first blood nearly 15 minutes into the game. Better late than never for BLG, and now more plates going over to the Vayne, an acceleration of the other marksmen that JDG are gonna have to worry about.
Culling, decent damage onto Viper, but not so much that it really forces Viper to back off. Trying to force priority for this Rift Herald, but look at the damage already coming out from Viper and on when he's got this Lulu at his side, chunking GALA to about 50% HP. JunJia still wants to try and find a way to guarantee this Rift Herald for themselves, but it's going to be a little bit tough now that GALA does not have the health bar advantage.
Yeah, GALA, I mean, you're a short-range Lucian. This is one of the conceits of the champion. You gotta get up there close and personal to deal the damage. And speaking of up close and personal,
public execution completely missed.
That hit my
and
fridge.
That forces this Ambessa to flash, and honestly, that looked like a panic ulti if I've ever seen one. Xiaoxu, I don't know if you want to go into darkness like that. There's no Counter-Strike. He ward hops back out to safety. BLG have controlled this Rift Herald, but the rest of JDG trying to regain position here. And they force them to reset the Herald.
So, overall, good macro play there from JDG. They realize that Knight is split from the rest of the squad. Xiaoxu with a very bold blast cone over that wall. Does kind of force BLG to regroup, and then with the rest of JDG moving on up, they concede that space. So at the end of it all, JDG are the ones that end up getting the objective, regardless of what happened before. And we're going to get a replay of what happened before with Bin's solo kill here. So is this just, yeah, another case of him condemning him further away from his turret? Xiaoxu flashes away, Bin immediately responds, and then the exhaust to run him down. Now putting him at 1.5k gold in the driver's seat. Quests have been completed for some time too as well, so Vayne does have the option of having that teleport and joining up with the rest of the team. This is where the double marksman comp, Raafaa, could really start to shine.
First item's already completed. And second items, Mel on their way. Oh, Bin might just try and run down Xiaoxu here. Control ward. Not sure what that was for, I'm not gonna lie, but it put Bin at least somewhat wary of something happening, as Bin secures first brick on the top side of the map, and we have Dragon spawning in the next 23 seconds.
Bin's not even gonna go for that control ward. He's gonna let it sit there and make Xiaoxu feel the awkwardness of placing that, with it really paying no dividends at the end of the day. Like you said, though, drag it up very soon. JDG get temporary control of the river, but Bin is on the move. He is moving toward that top side, so it doesn't look like BLG are committing all of their resources over toward this Drake. And JDG gonna try and get a little bit more pressure. Herald has been spawned, but even if this charges Mark, it will not kill the turret. So some plate gold will be there, but nothing else.
Shun got interrupted on the ward hop, forced to flash over the wall. Well timed by HongQ's Anivia there. That's a crucial summoner spell on the Lee Sin. Won't be able to make any kick flash plays anytime soon. But as you called out, BLG are very happy to concede that dragon and say, well, look at us solo lanes. We're farming up a storm.
I mean, Bin is going to get this turret. He's going to pick up a wave. He completed that Roa long ago, has 3 stacks on it now. So once we get to the actualizer spike on this Ryze, again, can't stress this enough. An early cordial game is exactly what this BLG comp want. They scale into oblivion. Double marksman, plus a Ryze is a late game that can haunt your nightmares. And the fact that JDG haven't really found opportunities to accelerate the game pace at all is very concerning, because it feels like we're getting shades of game number 1, where JDG are trying to look for plays, trying to get this game under control, but BLG have the better scaling comp, and eventually it's a powder keg that will explode, and you're going to be in the blast radius.
Yeah. JDG are really feeling the pressure of not having strong, reliable engage on their side. Obviously, the Vayne put a bit of a dent in their draft plans, and they tried to pivot around it, sending the Ambessa into jungle, but that denied other jungle picks that were still on the table that had much more reliable ways of being able to force fights than this Ambessa without any proper setup. Xun, though, has to constantly be careful about this Anivia wall now that he no longer has flash. Thankfully, he was able to ward hop this time around, but Bin slowly putting pressure on the top side of the map and giving BLG access into this jungle quadrant with deeper vision. And now HongQ is forced to answer to the Vayne on the top side.
And Xun's role in these team fights now is going to be something I'm curious to see, because we talked about the early pressure provided by Lee Sin as a champion, but there really was no early game pressure to be had by either one of these squads. So now, are you just kind of relegated to being a kickbot? Like, are you just a peel tool for your backline to take over? Because it feels like if you engage into this comp, you're probably asking to get gray screen. So Xun has a very easy task, basically.
Yep. You are very much a disengaged guy at this point. And that is something that, obviously, you're not going to recognize a lot if you play Lee Sin in solo queue and you're looking for the kick flash plays. But then again, as we say it, he just looks for a little bit of a 1-2 combo on the Vampire, immediately gets both the flash and the summoner heal. So that Viper and the rest of BLG can be a bit more comfortable sitting in this mid lane fighting for priority.
So basically what I'm hearing is that Xun is going to be the living embodiment of the quote, "I fear not the man who has practiced 10,000 kicks. I fear the man who has practiced one kick 10,000 times." He's just going to keep kicking them.
True.
Yeah.
Dragon's Rage is a powerful thing to have, and as long as Xun recognizes when to use it aggressively and when to use it to provide support and peel for his backline, and BLG are in a great spot.
They are, for sure. And, I mean, we can see the range of the Kog'Maws doing wonders and just being able to chip away at this final tier 1 on the side of JDG. And it feels like this is a game, Mark, where JDG are slowly starting to bleed out. There hasn't been basically any action on the map as Viper gets a little aggressive there, forces the wild growth out of On, and now Bin is forced to pop his ultimate.
Oh boy, but this time JunJia can provide relief and support, but he sidesteps the public execution. Counter-Strike used again. Now it's time for Bin to get the hell out of there and run. He flashes over the Anivia wall. Not sure. Oh, can he teleport? No, he's gonna.
No.
He is just gonna
try
to
on Baron, by the way.
Oh my goodness.
He got canceled.
BLG will tip their hat, say 0-7 to Bin for giving his life and completely rage baiting JDG, all 5 members of the bot side, and say, thank you. We will take this Baron now for free.
Absolutely worth it for BLG. I mean, they might lose their mid lane tier 1 here, as well as their bot lane tier 1. We can see Xiaoxu is in the area as well. They're going to Realm Warp there, so they're actually going to save this turret.
Flash immediately, trying to dodge out on that Anivia Q stun. On paying respects over to HongQ, but we've got a dragon coming up in the next 25 seconds here. Quax, Baron on BLG's side. Wouldn't mind seeing them concede another dragon if that means they can get time to use this Baron buff to take down some additional turrets. As Xun looks for the kick flash play, but doesn't even get a chance to use his flash or kick at all. Immediate disengage by GALA, burning his own flash, but now Lucian is a more viable target on the next look.
All right, Xun is taken down to about half HP. He's going to be forced to recall ahead of this fight, so no jungler for BLG temporarily. And JDG, despite being the ones without the Baron buff, are actually going to gain control over this bot side river just because they have numbers advantage. They pull priority away from Bilibili Gaming. and they're going to be the ones with the dragon. It looks like BLG have no interest in conceding that, but there isn't much to get on the cross map. There's no Baron available. Tier 1 turret has been taken on the top side. It's a dragon for free, and good macro coming out from JDG.
And at least allows them to continue stacking up to that Mountain Soul, now 2 dragons away. But they have yet to answer the question of how they're going to consistently deal with Bin on the side lanes with only one person. Because so far, it seems like anytime Bin shows up, it's going to have to be a multi-man effort to shut this Vayne down. Bin actually coming to mid lane. Viper stands up and says, yeah, you put me behind a wall, but HongQ is forced to flash away as that damage from the Kog'Maw immediately makes HongQ regret that decision.
You put me behind a wall, but I'm going to try and put you in the ground. Viper walking up to JDG, his Lulu in the back pocket, and BLG's marksmen are starting to come online here. You mentioned Bin, now on 2 items. Well, Viper is working on his 3rd, so we're getting closer and closer to the Doomsday Clock striking 12, and I feel this BLG comp reaching that critical mass that we warned against in the draft, Mark.
And we're very close to that point, Quax. Viper halfway to his 3rd item. Bin also halfway to his 3rd item. Double marksman with 3 items. That is very, very terrifying for this JDG roster. And quite frankly, HongQ is really their best way of trying to deal with this composition for BLG, but now that he has no flash, this bird is a sitting duck for any type of CC from BLG that they manage to find, and has to be extremely cautious about how he positions himself in these further engages for the next few minutes.
Luckily, the CC from BLG is not particularly heavy. Knight does have the Rune Prison, but has to throw out his E before he can get the root. And it's not always a guarantee that just the slow is going to be enough. Besides that, there isn't a ton of guaranteed crowd control on the side of BLG. So I actually think HongQ is a little bit more freed up than you would expect to play it further in these fights without that flash. But still, I agree with you. He is the main guy that we have to be looking out for on JDG's side to really consistently dish out that damage, because everyone else on JDG's side is so short range. They have to go in to this comp that feels so difficult to engage onto. So it's a tall task for the rest of the team, but it is the weight of this game on HongQ's shoulders. We talked about him in game number 2 being this guy capable of carrying teams, of putting on such an insane, legendary performance in the year of 2025, and not wanting to miss out on an international for the first time in his career. And it's performances like this that he is going to need to pull out if he wants to make it to MSI, if he wants to get that lower bracket run.
Yeah. He's got a decent supporting cast here from JDG, the rest of the top side. Endless Hunger picked up by JunJia's Ambessa, really relying on the additional ability haste he gets from the item, as well as the Omnivamp that's going to rack up off of the first takedown. But he needs that reset to be guaranteed before he feels like the massive threat.
Gotta get the reset, gotta get the Omnivamp unlocked. First things first, you gotta get one of those kills, and BLG's backline are so well protected. I mean, Condemn is gonna throw out there onto Xiaoxu. He's immediately gonna be forced to back on away. Shun trapped in the wall, but the siege from BLG is starting to become a very big issue, and JDG really only have the Anivia as reliable wave clear mark. So wherever HongQ is, I feel like BLG don't want to be. If they can split the map and pull apart JDG's comp, there's only one Anivia, and there are 5 members of BLG.
Yeah. Viper tries to unload some damage. Decent chunk onto HongQ's health bar. Flash still not available on this Anivia. TP, deep flank from Xiaoxu, trying to find the counter-strike that could win them back this game. Looking for Bin. Flash counter-strike onto Viper, but he flashes away. And he
Xiaoxu's in the back line.
Speed. Xiaoxu can no longer keep them locked down. HongQ looking for the wall to separate them and
pick up Viper.
Viper gets it, but Shun.
Look at Knight.
Is it enough? Knight has to find the flank. He flashes over the wall. GALA is able to make it out alive, but now Bin wants revenge as he tries to kite them all back. JDG somehow only dropping 2 in the skirmish, but BLG have 4, and they want to risk the Baron.
And with the Lulu up as well, they've got the sustain. The shields are going to be there to get Shun to stay within a healthy range of HP ahead of this Baron. But JDG, they don't want to contest. They don't want to fight them head on. They're going straight to B-line on this bot side. The dragon is in their eyes, Mark.
Crazy fight that breaks out off of this deep TP flank from Xiaoxu.
And it's finally JDG picking and choosing, waiting for the perfect moment to pull the trigger. And this was that time. Xiaoxu looking for an engage onto Viper. And initially, I feel this fight was really worrying. We see the Realm Warp flank come through from Knight. Shun is waiting for his moment, gets a beautiful kick into HongQ, and they're all sectioned off here, but then Viper gets caught by the wall. The main damage on the side of JDG, or BLG rather, gets taken down, and the rest of the JDG members are able to create the distance, exfiltrate from the play, and it only ends up being a 1-for-1. BLG get the Baron, but crucially, JDG are on soul point.
Might be in trouble. No flash, no ghosts on the Ryze from the prior fight on the top side of the map.
He's
but
level 18.
Viper and On are there to back him up, and that is one accelerated Ryze, 2 levels above his counterpart in HongQ's Anivia, who now has flash and teleport crucially. Shun trying to protect Bin in the mid lane, trying to make use of this Baron buff. The last time they had the buff on their side, it was only a 600 gold advantage found. So not the greatest Baron power play, but already they have more than doubled it.
They have, I mean, JDG are basically their game plan is hold out for another 3 minutes and then try and set up around this dragon. But BLG have a minute and 25 seconds to really push the issue of the fact that they have Baron and their siege power is so strong. And the only person that can deal with that wave clear, like we talked about, is the Bird, HongQ with this Anivia, but he can only be one place at a time. So BLG with this Baron are looking to split the map, put pressure on more than one front, and chip down on these turrets. But JDG are actually mounting a pretty good defense so far. They aren't able to knock down these turrets and make use of this Baron buff. So I think JDG weathering this storm, just showing the map play that we have complemented consistently throughout this series. It is coming through in defense here and stalling out BLG from growing that already somewhat large gold lead that they have.
Couple things. It's crazy that in a match that involves BLG and JDG, there's only 5 kills total in 31 minutes.
I know.
This has been such a nail-biting game with very, very little mortal wounds delivered on Summoner's Rift here. There's been a ton of bloodshed, there's been a lot of tension, but the game hasn't completely exploded.
It's the macro play, Mark. This is a subject that we talked about in the pre-show as something that has evolved for BLG as we saw in their EDG series, and something that I think JDG has always put on display. Anytime you've got these top 8 teams, it feels like the late game decision making, the setup around objectives is always superior with any team that he coaches, and JDG has been no exception. So their ability to hold out, to stall, to get these small little windows to look for the Dragon Soul win con and take those opportunities has been immaculate to see. It has not been a game about micro. It has not been a game about mechanics. Despite the double marksman comp, it has been slow, methodical, calculated, and I love seeing that style be put on here for both of these squads.
And it's definitely a reflection of the stakes and the gravitas of this match, right?
Right.
We called this the finals in exile because this is a matchup between our number 1 and number 2 seeds from the regular season, where we expected them to be either strong contenders to return to MSI, if not fighting for grand finals.
A grand finals match. Yeah.
Yeah. This definitely could have been that, but they both find themselves in the lower bracket early on as a quarterfinal matchup. Not even a semifinal or a lower final. It's a lower quarterfinal matchup very early on in playoffs. And now one of these two teams that both represented LPL at first stand a couple months ago is going to have to take an early exit and wait until split 3. And you can see that weight is weighing heavily on both of these teams' shoulders with how respectful, how patient they are trying to play these sequences out.
Dragon up in about 40 seconds. It would be Soul if JDG are able to acquire it, but BLG are playing very far up. Shun is looking for these Qs just onto any target that he can find them. It's just about the vision. It's about tracking where JDG want to move. And trying to move further into this jungle is a difficult task with the comp that you're dealing with. These marksmen have scaled up. They have got their item breakpoints, Mark. It is so hard for Jindong Gaming to play out these late game team fights. And this is what we warned against. This is when the BLG comp really comes online.
Bin has a flank angle. Knight has the
Bin.
inside track. Xiaoxu has TP available. Bin shows himself a little too early, but commits to the play. Xiaoxu's gonna take too long to get there. Shun goes for the immediate back.
Oh, the kick!
Flash onto Vampire and GALA. HongQ eliminated. BLG find the one moment needed to end this game, and they don't drop a single man. Triple kill to the Viper puppy, and BLG find the ace at 34 minutes.
And Shun finds the clutch kick onto the back line. One team fight is all it will take for BLG to break this match. Wide open, 5 members alive, barreling down in bot side. They should be able to take us to a game 4.
The evolution that Bilibili Gaming has been putting on display ever since being sent to the lower bracket has continued to impress series after series. BLG now find themselves on match point.